the way in which we show up in the beauty space is so beautiful. Like one of my columns, I talked about the fact that lotion is a verb in the Black household. Like it's not just a thing. It's not just, oh, go get that lotion.
Right.
It's like, did you lotion?
Yeah.
Don't forget to lotion before you leave this house.
Right.
If you see me shining and glistening out in these streets, please know it's not just for me, but for my people.
Yeah. So welcome.
Thanks.
To another episode of Guess Who's in My Chair Today.
I love being in your chair. It's one of my favorite places.
Yeah, and I see you on an average more than most of my clients that come in every 3 months because of your desire for self-preservation.
Yes. My desire for my hair to be preserved and then for my soul to be preserved.
And you just started this.
I did. So 2024, I was like, look, Julie, like you need to start putting yourself first. Like start doing things for yourself because I just put everyone else first. I'm a mom.
You
I'm
also
a wife.
you're a mom for the second time.
Yes.
Your womb fire.
Yes, my womb fires.
Who was in here the other day.
Yes.
And he's hysterical.
Right. I love also that you allow me, we're such family that you allow me to bring my family in when it would mean I wouldn't be able to see you if I couldn't bring them in. So it's so great. So I see you twice a month, every 2 weeks, unless I have a protective style in. And it's really good. It helps me, obviously maintain my crown, but also my soul because we're friends and we're family. Yeah. And like, I really love being in your chair and being taken care of by you, like physically and emotionally.
Well, at least your hair is going to be taken care of. And that's a difficult thing to, I guess, find for women is like, can I just relax and know that they're going to take care of my hair?
Right.
And as much as I promote you having agency over your own hair and you being able to have salon results at home, because that's my angle,
right.
Particularly for Black women, that whole term, I go get my hair did, is an awful term because we're so dependent upon the person doing your hair who may or may not known or loved what was naturally yours.
Exactly.
And so that you take that time, because I take that time too. I go to the spa once or twice a week.
And you walk and you like really pour into yourself, I think, in ways that are very inspiring.
You have to in a city like New York because it does not stop.
It doesn't.
And you are not obligated to respond back to 8 million people a day. You're not obligated to get back to every one of them, so you have to find your way. And I'm also imagine as a Black woman, which is much different from being a white woman. Did anybody know that? I say that to say is that if you're married and with kid or two kids, you have to make time for yourself and create something for self.
I mean, you have to, but a lot of us don't. Well, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that is why I made a conscious decision.
Amongst that Black women have to pay every day. Yeah. And do not apologize, ladies.
Don't do
for taking time for yourself. But I think that's happening because men are finally learning to have they're realizing that they have to step to a Black woman differently. Yeah. I think men in general.
For sure.
Learn how they're your equal, dude. And like, you're going to have to learn how to have a new conversation with her. Just like white people are going to have to learn how to have a new conversation with Black people. Right. You got to fix yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's also why I feel so blessed that I have such a dope husband. Yeah. Who is just definitely my equal, definitely in this with me, definitely ride or die, like allows me to be me. I allow him to be him. But when we come together and we're parenting these boys and then just also being each other's homie lover friends, like that's amazing, Yeah.
He gets what you do.
He gets it. like in a very real way.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Look, I think that again, you form your village, you form the people around you that like have like-minded ideas, values, and who understand that we can do this together, you know? And I definitely have that in my husband, but also my village. You're part of my village.
Yeah.
Like, I have to be surrounded by people who truly love me and want to see me win, and I do the same for them.
Likewise.
There's no competition. There's no like, you know, I don't know, like
you
beating
need
each
somebody
other.
speaking on your behalf in conversations, in rooms where you're not there. You want somebody to advocate for you. I mean, I get it. I imagine that's also why you are the beauty editor that you are. Not everyone does this with purpose. What we do in the beauty industry, not in realizing, our reader's not just a white girl or a white woman. Our reader, and now they're realizing that now that a lot of them have gone bust, except for Cosmo kills it because of a different thing. They've always empowered women to be women opposed to girls.
But to your point, I think it's also getting to a place of having diverse POVs and like storytelling. Like I was the first Black beauty director at Cosmo in its history. And Cosmo's been around since the 1800s. So like that is huge, right? Not to say that there weren't diverse voices before me, or that you know there were. So like
that's amazing.
It's amazing, but it also shows, you know, we have to push that. There has to be an evolution. I have a column now in Cosmo called Yours, Mine, Ours, and it's the intersection between Black culture and beauty. That's all it is. I could have had a page where I'm just talking about anything, because I can do that because I'm a beauty editor and I can talk about anyone's beauty. But the fact that the brand gave me an opportunity to be extra Black,
because the brand knew what was happening to other brands.
For sure. But they could have said, you're still a Black voice and you're still a Black woman, and your POV to talk about anything is important, which I think it is.
You also talk about the Black point of view in a very positive way.
Because it is positive. It's beautiful.
Positive, exactly. There's nothing not positive about color. Black, brown,
color, texture, like the way in which we show up in the beauty space is so beautiful. Like one of my columns, I talked about the fact that lotion is a verb in the Black household. Like it's not just a thing. It's not just, go get that lotion. It's like, did you lotion? Don't forget to lotion before you leave this house. And the fact that it's not just a reflection on good hygiene, making sure that, you know, your skin is moisturized, but also the fact that you're representing the community, your race outside the household. So it's a point of pride. So it's like, don't be ashy out in the streets to pour into any negative stereotypes that the world has about us. And that we're unkept, that we don't look good, that we're ashy, that we're all these things. So it's like, yes, take care of the biggest organ on your body, your skin, but also, like I think I ended that column being like, if you see me shining and glistening out in these streets, please know it's not just for me, but for my people.
You started at Simple.
At Real Simple.
And you started Real Simple, and then I met you, Christina Norman,
when I was at the Huffington Post.
At Huffington Post, senior beauty editor.
Senior style editor.
And at Real Simple, where did you know that you were going to have a voice and that you were going to be an influence, and that your voice needed to be heard?
I mean, from the womb, I knew that.
From the womb, you did. No, for real.
No, I think I knew that I always, like, after I decided that I wasn't going to be a doctor, because I feel like you always think, like, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, like, those are the kind of, like, the professions that you're like, these are the things I need to do. When I decided none of those things were what I really wanted to do in college, and, like, I decided I wanted to be a journalist, I wanted to be a fashion journalist, I pursued that. And so when I got my first full-time job at Real Simple, I was the assistant to the editor-in-chief. So I wasn't in the fashion department or anything. I was assisting.
Did you want to be in publishing?
yeah, it was like I really wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be in magazines. Like, I loved magazines. I poured over magazines.
Yeah.
I got 17 magazine every month. I got Vogue. Like, I was a magazine girl. I got Essence. I got Ebony. Like, all of those magazines, because I loved the storytelling. So I knew I wanted to do that, and I thought I really wanted to be in fashion at first. So, look, Real Simple Magazine isn't known for its fashion, but they do fashion.
Yeah.
And they do beauty. And so I got an opportunity to be the assistant to the editor-in-chief there, which, again, is not in a fashion or beauty department, but I was assisting the most powerful woman on staff.
Yeah.
You know, I was her assistant for a little over a year, and then I got promoted to the fashion department. And I was at Real Simple. Most people know me in my career probably from Essence, but that's when people started to know who I was. But I was at Real Simple for 6.5 years. It's the longest I've been ever at a job.
So it was a comfortable place to find your footing.
And I just kept getting like promoted. It was nice that they kept promoting me and pushing me out there in the world. And then I went to the Huffington Post in 2011 when magazines were folding. To your point, like, a lot of magazines weren't surviving this digital boom. And I was like, I really need to learn the digital world of publishing. And so I got the opportunity to go to the Huffington Post Black Voices, and I decided to go. And I always say I went from a monthly to a minutely, because I was working on 3 to 4 stories a month at Real Simple Magazine. And when I went to the Huffington Post, I was writing 3 to 4 stories a day.
Damn.
Like, I have thousands of clips
You do.
at the Huffington Post. It was churn and burn, baby.
Right.
It was write the
What's
story.
up with them now?
Pub.
They were it.
Oh,
no? Black Voices? Huffington Black Voices?
I mean, they're still around. Don't get me wrong. They were bought by BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
So,
you never know why and when that happens.
Yeah,
why it happens.
like a lot of times, like just a lot of these like magazines and big media companies that just start changing hands. Like, they start going. When I was at Real Simple, it was Time Inc. And then when I came back to go to Essence, it was Time Inc. And then Time Inc. got bought by Meredith, and Meredith went under. Now it's Dotdash. So, like, the publishing industry is wacky and wild.
Yeah.
I mean, the 2 big publishing companies that kind of have stood the test of time
slow.
is Hearst.
They were slow. Like, the
and
music
Condit.
industry was slow to catch on to how its industry was changing. And I think also, like, the people, the consumer, the people drive this thing. And if you don't know what the people want, or you're not in touch with the people, your shit's gonna fail.
Yeah.
The music
And you had a lot of, like, experience and influence within publishing too. You worked at magazines. You did a lot of editorial as well.
Yeah, I moved here in '89 to work for Orbe, because I had heard about him through my then friend Danilo. And Orbe was the first American hairdresser to go do the European shows.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Because I lived in San Francisco at the time. So it was like, I saw the end of my career, in a place like San Francisco, which was the kind of the gay capital of the United States. But it was like, I was also like, when you see the end of something, you're like, I got to find someplace else to go, because I don't want to see the end of my career at the age of 18.
Right.
And I saw myself sitting at Neiman Marcus like 20 years from now, like, Mr. Dickey, you smoking a cigarette, your client's in over the intercom. And I was like, I ain't doing that.
You were like,
more
I
hairdressers
want
per
big
capita.
things.
Yeah. There was more hairdressers per capita in San Francisco at the time.
Wow.
So, I moved to New York and discovered, I didn't realize I'm not a competitive person by nature. By any means. I find my lane, I find out what I'm good at, and then I stay there and I cultivate it. And that's also a safe place for me. So I need a little ruffling every now and then.
Nice.
But I was not the guy who was going to wear the black T-shirt with the shoulders rolled up and the black jeans and the motorcycle boots. That just wasn't me. I was in, Stacey Adams Hawaiian shorts and lime green.
But I love that you
lime
stuck
green knit top.
To your own aesthetic and own guns and like all of that. I think that was probably.
And I tried to fit in for about 15 years. It's like I came here with a portfolio. I knew what I wanted to do. And I was around some of the most amazing hairdressers in the world, and I didn't realize that, like, you know, how cutthroat and competitive it was for the other assistants who were trying to get, you know, in the hands of, or in the view of Orbe or Danilo or Kevin Mancuso. And I discovered that it was a very segregated industry.
Okay.
Just like when I came out of the closet in
right.
San Francisco, I was like, this is not what I thought gay was going to be. Because when you grow up with a black family and in a black community, your ideal of what the world is going to look like becomes kind of shattered. And you're like, oh. So San Francisco was a rude awakening, because it just wasn't you know, I had a ball for 5 years, and then moved to New York and realized that within my industry or beauty that it was just very segregated. The information that the magazines were employing upon hairdressers that were either freelance or working in the salon, a lot of the interviews were, I didn't say that, and I didn't say that for her hair texture, and you know, that stuff gets published. So hair rules to me was a middle finger to the industry. Yeah,
and your own kind of space utopia empire to build around the conversations you wanted to have and creating the looks you wanted to create.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that, you know, and I had an agent at the time, Brooke Wall, from the Wall Group, which we started all at Ford. That's what I did for 15 years before I started Hair Rules, was editorial and advertising work. And then one day I had I told Brooke, this was probably in the early 2000s, like 2000. Was it 2000? Was it 1999? It was 1999. I said, you know, and the industry was changing, you know. Models started to be replaced on the cover of magazines by celebrities.
Right.
Models were on every cover of every magazine all through the 90s. You could expect to see Cindy, Naomi,
Christy.
Although Naomi was always given a cover in July.
Of course.
But it was boring. It was beautiful, but it was boring. And then those tabloid magazines came out, and then magazines, I think, started to realize that they could get more bang for their buck if you had a celebrity, whether they was a recording artist or an actor.
Movie stars.
If we delved into the personal lives of them and their project, movie houses and record labels could get more bang for their buck and exposure.
And more money, sponsorships. They can, like, buy an ad in the magazine. And, like, it just made sense.
So then you realize that there was a shift, because you couldn't dictate how Erykah Badu or Jill Scott or the ghetto fabulous era of Lil' Kim and Mary J. Blige. You couldn't dictate to them how they were going to look on those magazines. They were calling the shots.
Right.
So black women started to see different images of themselves. That was the beginning of, for me, noticing how my industry shifted, how I was going to shift with it. And you have to. Otherwise, you'll be left in the dust. And so for me, I asked my agent, Brooke, I says, hey, we want to, you know, talk about my career. Okay, let's go talk about your career at lunch. And so, I want to do more black hair. And she was like, I don't really know that industry. Oh.
That industry.
Okay. I said,
that's triggering.
I said, I wasn't triggering as much as it was truth-telling. And I was like...
Truth-telling, but black hair is beauty.
I was a discovery.
It's not a different industry.
Everything is a discovery for me. I don't get triggered. Everything is like, shift.
I love that shift.
Shift. So for me to hear that black hair was an industry, knowing that Oscar James and other black hairdressers like Ursula Stevens was really killing it at the time. No one knew how fabulous she is as much as they do now. Right. Because everything was so white, right?
Ted Gibson.
I don't know, I think Ted Gibson.
So many. Amazing.
And so I was like, wow, okay, so I'm done. I told her, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move on. So we were all also in between gigs, we were all working at John Frieda. All the white supermodels came to John Frieda. I was doing all of the black models, like Tamiko, Kiara, and a slew of others. And John Frieda, their management, they came to me once, had a meeting and said, like, listen, and they got sued I think by way of the Crown Act. I moved on. I was like, I was making money in the salon. I was making like $3,000 a day. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm not waiting on a gig anymore. I got sick of waiting on a check. I discovered where I really, my love for hair really was, and I was discovering a lot of things about hair with all the black models that I did. Because a lot of them, not all of them were relaxed. Only a few of them. So in between gigs, it's like, let's take care of your hair. So you show up on your job. If they want you to straighten, we've already straightened it, just, for safety reasons. And I remember the management coming to me and saying, listen, we need you to start charging all of the black models that you do. I was like, why? We don't charge their white counterparts like Stephanie Seymour and Cindy Crawford and Carolyn Murphy. We're not charging them.
So what did they say?
Yeah, well, you're taking up too much room. I was taking up too much dryer space. And so I was like, and my friend at the time was a manager, assistant manager, Losi. And she was like, yeah, that's not cool to say. You want him to charge the black models. And a week later, they fired me. And I had a mouth on me, too.
Don't you still? Like, don't you still?
Yeah. And I was like, oh. And Tamiko at the time was like, yo.
Well, if you don't stand for anything, you fall. You know,
let's go to the New York
stand
Times.
For something, then you fall for anything.
Let's go to the press. And I was like, and Tamiko had just gotten her first black model to get a multi-million-dollar contract with Maybelline. So she was, she had gone from a weave to having to cut all her hair out because of the damage. Right. She did the forward to hair rules. But I had a lot of people on my side, like, you should really take this to the press. And I was like, it wasn't time yet.
Right.
It wasn't, I didn't want to make my mark
Right, you got to choose your battles. You got to figure
battle.
out when the battle needs to be fought.
So anyways, I was like, I left my agency, the Wall Group, and I called up one day and I was like, hey, I just want to get my account in order, and like, you owe me this, that, and the other. Right. And Brooke was like, fucking, we're not paying you, blah, 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 all this money. I was like, it was like $8,000. And I was like, what? Bitch, I seen motherfuckers get slashed over a $5 crap game. You got $8,000 of mine? You have lost your entire mind.
We're fighting.
So
I'm throwing hands.
Basically, I was at small claims court.
Okay.
And I had a friend of mine who was in commercials, Tareen Gibson at Ford. So she was going to go to court with me, and they sent a new accountant from the Wall Group to represent themselves. And
please tell me you got your money.
We showed up, and the woman didn't know what she was talking about. And she's like, these are the receipts. These are the jobs that I did. That was 6 months ago. That one was a year ago. And
where's my money?
I decided to go before an arbitrator, not a judge. Right. So it's just me and them. And if like whoever wins, wins. And the arbitrator looked at the woman. She says, ma'am, did he do the work? She said, well, yes, he did the work. She says, ma'am, pay him his money. And I was like,
it should be like, why did they think that they could actually win that if you did your work?
Because many hairdressers with agencies back in the 90s and 80s were chopped. Some agencies were bogus. Some agencies were, it was a great way to make a lot of money fast, an agency.
Right.
And oftentimes you can rip your hairstylist off or makeup artist or stylist or whatever.
Right.
I don't know exactly how it goes, but I know that it was common.
So it was a scam.
For you to jump up. Yeah, it was a whole scam. So, and they're
the
waiting for a check
judge
too.
Or the arbitrator was like, give him his money.
Pay him his money. So I called up. So about a week later, I get the judgment in the mail. I was like, oh shit.
Money.
Judgment for the plaintiff, right?
Right.
And I call up. I says, hey, this is Dickie. Can I speak to Brooke? And they're like, oh, what do you need? Well, just tell her that I won the judgment in our case, and I wanted to know when I could get a check. And she got on the phone, and she was like, I'm not fucking paying you, motherfucker. I said, bitch, motherfucker. We called each other everything.
My gosh.
We cursed each other out so bad. And we got the hatred out that we had for one another.
Dickie,
it wasn't
I had no
hatred
idea, but
as
like,
much as
but
it
the
was
rage.
I didn't trust you the whole time, and you're just showing me. So guess what? So that was that, and then so I got off the phone. I was like, oh my gosh, she said she wasn't paying me. And I called up the courthouse and I said, listen, I want a judgment in this against my
case?
old agency. I says, and she just cursed me out and told me that she wasn't paying me. So when can I have a sheriff go down and collect my money? Because I had heard, right? And there was a black woman on the other line. She said, sir, you for 30 days you cannot have a sheriff go collect any money. She said, but what you can do is you can file an information subpoena. And I was like, okay, well, what is that? And she says, well, for $2.50, you sign an information subpoena, and if you have a check and or a utility bill in that company's name, we can put a freeze on that account. And so I was like, I got on the subway, it was on the A train, and went down there for $2.50, filed an information subpoena, because I had a check. And
Dickie, I'm dying.
After I didn't have a check, one of the guys who worked for her at the time, we were cool. He was in accounting. And I was like, yo. And he gave me a check.
Wow.
And so a check number or account. And
wow.
And so I let it go. It was over the weekend. I was on a Saturday morning. I got booked for Glamour. And it was out in Montauk. And so the car was picking me up at 10 in the morning. And as I go downstairs to my 5-floor walk up, there's a FedEx at the door. And it was from
heavier check.
It was from Eric somebody was a big attorney for a lot of agencies back in the day. Mm-hmm. And it says, you have unlawfully put a freeze on all of John Frieda's U.S. accounts. I was like, yes. I was kind of like, ooh.
Wait, you literally put a freeze on all of John Frieda's
John Frieda was behind the funder, the financier for the Wall Group,
right?
Because at first it was John Frieda. They were going back and forth, and we also suspected that the two of them were.
But what a chess move! That you froze this beauty empire's accounts.
All of John Frieda's U.S. accounts. And so then I get a call from Brooke about 8 hours later, a voice message. Hey, Dickie, just want to know if you could talk for a second. And I was just like...
After you cussed me out?
Bitch.
And all you needed to do was write me an $8,000 check. And
or whatever the judgment was. You think it's only at the time, it's like $335.
This was on some fuck around and find out.
Mm-hmm.
They fucked around and they found out that you weren't the one.
So I say all that to say that I got they sent me all my books back to my house at 3 portfolios and I was like, oh shit! You don't look at your portfolios back in the day. They're at your agency, and they sent them all back, and I was like, and I was making coins at John Frieda. That's where I was like, I can make as much money today as I waited for fucking 6 months to wait. I'm like, no. So that's where I really found my love for being in the salon.
Yeah.
And knew that I still, looking at those books, I was like, these are going to be coffee table books.
I know. It's fabulous. So funny when you actually slow down and take stock of the work that you put out into the world. I did that recently. And I was looking at my old portfolioes when we had portfolios where you had your tears and I have physical ones, but also my digital, of all of my clips and my cover stories, and I beauty directed this or whatever. And I was like, wow, you're a bad bitch. You've been doing the things.
Right, exactly.
You have to remind yourself sometimes. You can't wait for the world to remind you who you are. Sometimes you have to remind yourself.
That you do have to make a certain effort to do that. And to your point, you also have to create a community around you that affirms you. And,
but wait, can we go real quick? I'm a journalist. I got the questions. Uh-huh. That $8,000 check that you eventually got, right? Because Brooke called you and said...
It wasn't all $8,000 because there's a limitation to small claims.
Okay, so it was what, 5?
It was I think it was 5, something like that, yeah.
Okay. What did you do with the money? Is that part of your story of starting Hair Rules? Was that
Absolutely not.
What did you do with it?
I spent it.
What did you spend it on?
I don't know. That was, do you know what year that was?
You said 99? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 2024.
Dickie, the better story would have been I took the $5,000 and started hair rolls. But I love it.
No, the story behind that is that when you get these books, and I was like, well, you know what? You need to find another agency because these books are money. This is money sitting here.
Yeah.
So I found another agency, went to them, and decided to take jobs. And then that's when I started to really balance my salon life with my freelance life. And the types of jobs that I took as a freelance, I became very discriminating on what those jobs were going to be, if they were beneficial to me. Your clients love them. So I've got this perfect balance of business and how you have to be able to do both. And you weigh out which one means more to you. Clients are not going to wait for you more than 1 or 2 call outs. And then they're going to find another hairdresser. So I had to be very conscious of how I managed my freelance schedule and salon. And the salon was more valuable to me.
Yeah.
It also, you get to touch more people. And so that's where I discovered through all of that whole journey was just like, at the time, Sam Fine, Kevin Mancuso, and Kevin Aquan had written books. Yeah. And I said, and I loved them all. They had, they were very celebrity-driven books and very tutorial. I think Sam's was the first of its kind in what he did for Black women in makeup. But I was like, I'm gonna write a book. Dickie, what you gonna write a book about? I was like, Dickie, I'm gonna tell the truth. What you gonna tell the truth about? All the things they've been lying to women about. All the articles that I contributed to in magazines for the last 15, 20 years, for magazines that were inaccurate, that didn't talk to the consumer that we spoke about over the interview, and hairdressers who don't have the skill set to deal with everybody's hair texture. I was also discovering through all the models that I was doing that there was more to some freelance hairdressers are way more intuitive and daring to do some out of the box shit. And so for me, that really fueled my engagement in discovering natural hair and the things that you could do with it. And like, girl, at the shampoo bowl, did you know your hair was not kinky? Did you know you actually had curls? Did you know your spongy hair was soft and not coarse and dry and wiry? And if I put conditioner on it, it gets curly. Should we wear it that way today? Show up to your job that way. Or I'll do it. You come in the morning, I'll show up to the job. And it was that where I was like,
the education meets the service too.
And that's where Hair Rules came in at the book, which was really for the consumer as well as the professional to kind of bridge the gap of what information they've been fed and why they feel the way they feel and how inaccurate it was.
And it's powerful to this day. It's over 20 years old now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. But also, like, your clientele, like me, like, getting that level of, we don't have to read the book. I have the book. I've read the book. But, like, the fact that we have you and you're still, like, evangelizing around this type of work and, like, is amazing. That, like, it's still a part of, like, your DNA.
And that's I think through your these iterations of your journey, right, you have to recognize the culture that you are in, the culture that you are from, and how do you, without reinventing the wheel, inspire people. I think, as long as you align yourself with God's will for you, you will always stay on your path. Right. And it's easy with social media. Like
courage. And I think I asked you this the other day around like risk. Did you feel like it was risky? And you were like, no. And I think that is very telling about the type of person that you are and how you show up in the world. Because for a lot of folks, and I would argue myself too, like earlier in my career, it felt risky to like just be like, I really like, I can write about anything and I can talk about anything, but I really want to go deep when it comes to diversity and inclusion in the beauty space. And like, that might be pigeonholing myself, but I also feel like it's distinctly my purpose, right?
Yeah.
And I found that like as my career has flourished, that it wasn't pigeonholing myself and it was needed, and I still do get opportunities to do other things beyond DEI work. But at the time when I decided that this was truly my calling, it did feel risky. It did feel like I might be shutting myself off to a lot of opportunities.
Tell me the moment you felt risk.
I feel like when I was at the Huffington Post and I went from, you know, Real Simple, which was like a juggernaut, like, I mean, it's still like such an amazing brand, but it was thick, like back when I was working on it, and it was like such a major brand and had, you know, brand extensions, like, you know, products in the Container Store. We had international editions.
Right.
We had like Japan and like all of this. It was like a really exciting time to be at Real Simple. When I left to go to Black Voices.
Right.
Like, you know, here I am in like a very mainstream, everyone knows Real Simple space. Granted, it wasn't like a fashion or beauty magazine,
so
but it was still something. But I felt going
to
the Huffington Post, it was Huffington Post, and like back in 2011, it was a juggernaut as well.
Yeah.
But I also felt like I'm going to Huffington Post, but Black Voices. And I still did it with my whole entire chest, but that was a moment where I was like, I'm really going in to talk about Black stories and POV, and that's what I want to do. But in my mind, I felt like, is this going to cut me off from like opportunities that might have been offered to me before? And as I went through my career at the Huffington Post, it was fine. I really created a lane for myself. I became that girl who could talk about the racially insensitive things or whatever. And like, it started to make a name for me in the industry that like, oh, Julee Wilson is like talking about the blackface editorial that happened at Vogue Italia or whatever. And I could do that because I wasn't at a publication that,
you walk in a room joyful.
Yeah. I mean,
your message is not a grim one.
It's not, but I'm still going to tell you about yourself if you're doing something wrong.
And you should. But I think
But yes, it comes from love of, I want this to be, I'm a glass half full type chick.
Same here.
I want it to be better.
Yeah.
If I'm calling you out, lovingly calling you out.
I hate complaining. I hate griping. I like information.
Right.
And I like progression.
Right, but
like
if the information is also feels a little icky because I'm calling you out,
never feels icky.
Also, the in the spirit of like you were saying, like I am a joyful person. I think when I do quote unquote call certain things out, it's also in the spirit of calling you in for us, like calling people in to make sure that like we change it, that we fix it. Like I want it to be fixed. I'm not just wagging my finger at you because. And pointing at you like you did this wrong, you're racist, it's like this moment is racist. Yeah. How do we fix this so that we're not there? This doesn't happen again.
I think people will say that, you don't want to appease people, this, that, and the other. No. How you communicate your message is for the person receiving it. I say this all the time. And if they're not going to be impacted by it, the way you want them to be impacted by it, then that's on you.
Right.
You can't beat people down. You can't make them feel bad about things. The truth does not, for me, has never equated with making you feel bad. The truth is the truth.
Right.
And there in no way are we going to skirt over the truth or water it down. This is the truth. I don't know. I've never found any fear or apprehensive about telling the truth. I love that. We had a digital marketing team, all white, and during the pandemic, they joined us, and it was just so apparent that their advertising or marketing points of view were just regurgitated from culturally what they saw. And like we all know that, like, you know, that Black people really are innovators when it comes to marketing and advertising, right? And,
Absolutely.
And the culture.
Yeah.
And when we say that, like, we are the culture, it comes from a innovative, like, we are technology.
Yeah.
It comes from an innovative, guttural ability and need to come up out of some shit and shine. And out of that is innovation. And you can only do that if you're Black. So it was very apparent to me that the stuff that they were just coming up with for ads, for you know, whether it was Google ads or Instagram ads or anything, was just like, where did you get this from?
Right.
Like, what is this? And I remember during the lockdown, the George Floyd worldwide marches around George Floyd's murder. There was this email that came through, and Black Lives Matter was it at the time, and from this marketing maven that we had on board, and she said, you know, and they kept telling me to fall back until the website was finished. And in this email, it said, well, you know, this is all really horrible, but the fact is that all lives matter, and something. And I was like, really, bitch?
You're like, not today. Not today.
All lives matter. And so I sent and then I went and looked at the website, and I was like, they've taken every dark-skinned brown girl off of our website. The darkest girl was your color. And I was like, oh shit. And so I've had some challenges with the brand, the people that we've hired, because I don't do the hiring. And so I sent an email to my partners, which is my cousin, his wife, my cousin and her husband, and my other partner, Tanj. And I said, yo, this chick thinks that all lives matter, and she's erased anybody of color from our website. What the fuck? I says, I'm out. And so they fixed it. She's now gone. But I said, because they were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to say? I was like, we're not going to do or say anything. We're Black owned. So why do you feel the need to all of you to jump on, like, we have to say something? And I was just like, oh, now you want to figure out what we're supposed to say because you don't know what to say.
Right.
You know all that other shit you hijacked.
Right.
And the day after, I think it was that everybody blacked out their Instagram thing.
Oh, right, the black boxes.
You came up with Cosmo's 30 Black-owned brands.
Oh, no, 100 and something.
Was it 100 and something?
Oh, it was.
And I was like, hello, if you fall back and look at our community, it will take care of itself.
That was like a big moment because I remember a bunch of beauty editors.
Tell me.
Well, a lot of my white counterparts were like DMing me after I published that. I think I started with 120. That was off the top of my head. That's not me like, what are the Black-owned beauty brands? That's me being Black and in this industry and knowing who those brands were, knowing some of the founders.
Beautiful brands. I mean, just the level of the packaging, the marketing. I went and looked at a lot of them.
Yeah,
I was super impressed.
Well, so Cosmo, I did the 120 beauty brands, and then on my Instagram I did a whole roundup of just like Black-owned brands in general. But I remember some of my amazing white counterparts like reaching out to me and being like, oh my gosh, like I was so lazy, I had no idea there was all these Black beauty brands. And it was like, well, I'm glad it's helped, you know, like not wagging my finger at them, but being like, this is a lightning moment. Yeah. And then now, I mean, that was off the top of my head. I think now we've updated that post several times over, and now there's over 250.
Really?
Like, there's just so many, and people were blind to the way we were showing up in this space.
Right.
They were like, oh, and I've always,
it was always on.
We were always there, but no one was like giving us money, putting us on. And I always say there's so many Black beauty brands too that are just as good as any and better than any, including
definitely.
Hair Rules. Like they don't necessarily need their own like sandbox over here. Like, oh, look at all these great brands. Oh, and here are some Black owned brands.
Right.
It's like, no, like this product is good enough to be next to the, you know, whatever, Pantene or like the Kerastase or whatever it is. It's not just on the page because we had to throw in a Black owned brand.
Right.
It's on the page because it deserves to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that has also been part of like my push in this industry. If I have a seat at the table, I'm going to make sure that these Black and brown owned brands that have been like sitting in the shadows for so long are brought into the spotlight. But I think it's also the, you know what you know and you know what you don't know, right? So if I'm telling you lovingly that this is something you don't know and you should probably know. Like I remember when Lindsay Peoples, the editor-in-chief of The Cut magazine, when she was an editor there, not the editor-in-chief, she wrote the whole like Black in Fashion article that like went viral because she interviewed all the black folk in fashion and beauty and asked them what it was like working in the industries. And I remember one of the quotes I gave saying that like, if you are a white editor and you can't run me 5 edge controls or don't know what like 4C hair is or whatever, you shouldn't have your job. Because if there are people of color that want an edge control, have 4C hair, whatever, if the beauty that is reflected in the mirror, if you only know the beauty that was reflected in the mirror, you should not have your job. You should actually not have your job. Because I, as a Black woman, when I go in to interview for a job or whatever, I need to know everyone's beauty. Not just Black beauty.
You're required to. I'm
required to. You're not required to know my beauty. But you should, because there are people that look like me that read your work. But like the bar is set so much higher for us to know everything.
That's why we're the most innovative.
And so for me, that's always been a not shame on you. Sure, in the moment it's a shame on you to the hiring managers or the editors that are hiring these people, but also do the tweak, right? So the next time you have an opening, you have an interview, ask someone about beauty that's not reflected in the mirror. Ask them, what do you know about Black beauty or Asian beauty or Indigenous beauty? Ask them those sorts of questions in order to get the job. Because then you'll really see whether they are being quote unquote lazy and only doing the bare minimum of knowing, I know white beauty, I don't need to know Black and brown beauty. Like, so
you know
for
what you should
me,
do?
it's like just that little tweak.
You should be the
like,
Anthony Bourdain of beauty and go around the world.
Look,
and go
sign me
find
up.
all
I'm
this
here.
indigenous beauty regimens from across the world. Wouldn't that be amazing?
I think it would be amazing. I would have so much fun. I think beauty is a true connect, just like food. And how like food is just so different and nuanced in different places. And every time I have a trip, the first thing I like research is food. Like what am I gonna eat? What is their like dish there? Or like what are the restaurants? Where did Anthony Bourdain dine when he was there, when he was alive and he was there? All of those things. So I do think that they're the same can be said about beauty.
Oh my God.
It's like, where am I going? What salon am I going to? What makeup companies that they don't sell in the United States do they sell in India?
What do indigenous people and this tribe use for beauty?
But like, can we fast forward just a little bit and talk about this salon? Like,
this one?
I mean, Hair Rules.
You're in Hair Rules now. Did you know?
I'm here every other Friday. But like that's a big deal. I think I told you this in the chair the other day of like the longevity of this is really to be commended.
Oh yeah, this will be around a lot longer than anything.
Oh. What's the winking?
Wink, wink. Because it's where I come to work every day. It's where I feel the most comfortable. It's where I have the most impact, which is it's why we have a podcast called Who's in My Chair. Is because of the amazing dynamic women or my community that I'm able to cater to and
But it's amazing that you're still here and still doing that work, right? Because I feel like
after how many years? 15?
Yeah.
It's a law owner. You have to define success for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to, along the way, feel comfortable and proud enough of the work that you do that it will pan itself out. But it is a struggle and it is a challenge.
It's such a challenge.
But, it's not sunny every day.
It's not.
It's not. And
you have to have the faith that like things will get better.
Yes.
There's seasons of drought. And then, there's seasons where things are flourishing. I am a part of a fund called Brain Trust, and it is about, pouring into mostly Black and Brown owned beauty and wellness brands. And I am a limited partner. It's about putting your money where your mouth is. I don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the little bit of money that I can squirrel away.
Yeah.
And use for investments to try to create some type of generational wealth and change in the industry, I'm going to put towards that. Because why else? Why else am I doing this work?
Yeah.
My legacy when I'm gone is going to obviously be my beautiful children, but also the work that I did. When you Google me, some dope shit's going to come up.
Yeah.
Agreed. It's going to be, she told the story, she said the thing, she moved the needle.
You look and she invested. My life.
And she invested in the Black companies that she wrote about. I might not die a millionaire. Hopefully I will. But if I don't, my legacy is going to be a part of making other Black people millionaires.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
Right.
If I can't do it for myself, then running this mouth, moving these fingers and writing about these Black-owned brands, I want to be a part of their success story.
Yeah.
I want them to say, you know what, when I was in Cosmo magazine in, September 2024 issue, that really helped propel me to create a multi-million-dollar brand. That was one of the things, of the many things, but Julee taking her time and her effort to tell my story helped me get to a multi-million-dollar exit.
Nice. Well, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
I love that you're in my chair
every 2 weeks.
Once a week, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
And that you're in my chair today. Guess who's in my chair today? Julee Wilson.
Yep.
So thank you for this conversation.
Julee Wilson.
I love this conversation with you.
I really love all our conversations. I really love being in your chair. Thank you for loving on me for over a decade now. I mean, you've been doing my hair for 11, 12 years.
You do the same for me. You've always shown up for me, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And that's what
I've cried in your chair. I've laughed in your chair. I've held my children in your chair. You've really,
I've come out of church, walking down the street. I think I text you, it was a dark moment in my life.
Yes.
And you walked right in front of me.
But that's how God, the universal light works. He knows when you need your people. And I love the fact that we are in each other's lives. Thank you. I love you.
I love you too.